Hey guys, and welcome back to Morgs Menu. So today's video is going to be another copycat recipe video, and this one is going to be for McDonald's. So one of my favorite things at McDonald's, at least that they used to have, was those McWraps. They don't have those anymore, but they still have the snack wraps, which I love, and these kind of like do kind of both. And then we're also going to be doing a copycat of their ranch sauce, as well as just some homemade fries. So if you're interested to see how the three of those things come together, keep on watching. Alright, so as usual, I'll go over the ingredients that we'll need for this recipe to pull everything together, and then I'll go step by step on how everything is prepared. So I originally found kind of this recipe on TikTok, so I'll link the original one down below. She actually took the chicken part and fries it in oil, so if you're interested to see kind of how she did that, you could check that out. We're going to be using my air fryer just because that's what I've done with fried chicken recipes before, and it's always turned out great, and that's how I do my french fries as well. So we're going to be doing all this stuff in the air fryer. So as you can imagine, there are kind of three different components that go into this recipe. So number one is going to be the breaded chicken, number two will be the homemade ranch sauce, and number three will be the french fries. So for the breaded chicken, there are a couple different steps, but overall you're just going to need some chicken tenderloins, which I have in this bowl here, all prepped and ready to go. So basically for those, you can either use chicken breasts and just cut them into kind of thin strips, or you could just buy chicken breast tenderloins. For the chicken, we're going to need some buttermilk, flour and breadcrumbs, cornstarch and baking powder. And then for our spices, we need salt and pepper, paprika and onion powder, garlic powder, and then I'm also going to add some Lowry seasoning salt. It's kind of all included in here, but I'm just going to add a little bit of this because I really like it. For the chicken and the wrap itself, you're also obviously going to need some tortillas. So I just like to use these big, large burrito size flour tortillas. Again, you could do the smaller version if you wanted to do this more as a snack wrap, and you could just use kind of a small soft taco or fajito size tortilla and just make one or two smaller ones versus the one big one. And then you can add any other toppings that you want. So we're obviously going to have the sauce, and then I'm going to do some shredded cheddar cheese as well as some lettuce. You can add tomatoes, cucumbers, whatever you want to add to it. Now for the homemade ranch, this honestly is one of my favorite homemade ranches that I've ever made. I've made a couple different recipes. They're all kind of similar, but I really liked the ratio of this one, so I love it. I think it's great for both the wrap, and then I personally love dipping my fries in ranch. So for that, we're going to need both some mayonnaise and sour cream, buttermilk and lemon juice, some chives and dill, garlic powder and onion powder, and lastly, some salt and pepper. And then lastly, for our french fries, we just very simply need some regular old potatoes. You could do sweet potatoes if you wanted and prepare them the exact same way, but I just like these. I personally like to cook mine in avocado oil. It has a better temperature for high heat, which we'll be using in the air fryer. And then I personally just really love, again, this Lowry seasoning salt on french fries. I think it's a good combination of all the different ingredients that are in this seasoning. You can season it with whatever you want, salt and pepper, any additionals, but kind of for that more classic McDonald's french fry that's not over seasoning, just kind of salty, I like the Lowry seasoning salt. Alright, so as you can see, there are kind of a lot of ingredients in this, but overall it's not really a difficult recipe to pull everything together. So first thing I'm actually going to do is go ahead and get the potatoes prepped. All we're going to do for the potatoes is just peel them a little bit. It's not going to be perfect, I just want them to have a little bit of the peeling removed. Then we're going to slice them up into thin fries. I'm going to cut them pretty thin just to kind of mimic more of that McDonald's size, but you can obviously do this however you want. You'll just need to adjust the cooking time a little bit on your air fryer if you do cut a bigger french fry. As I've shown before with my potatoes in the air fryer, I like to soak them in water for 15 minutes to half an hour. So what I like to do is kind of take the fries, almost rinse them off in a sense, drain out that water, and then add the remaining water and just let that sit out. It really helps with the crispiness of the outside of the fries. We're also going to be cooking the fries first, so just to do that, it's very simple. If you have an air fryer, I'm basically just going to pat the fries down, make sure there's not hardly any water left on them. And then for about 2 potatoes, I add about 1 tablespoon of avocado oil. And then I'm going to add my seasoning salt. I personally, like I said, love the seasoning, so I'm just going to add a decent amount, but add kind of whatever you prefer. And then we're just going to mix these together and throw them in our air fryer. I personally like to fry mine at 375 degrees, and these are probably going to take up to 10 to 15 minutes. Like I've talked about before, I personally just like with my fries, I let them cook for about 4 or 5 minutes and stop it and shake it around, and basically just continue to do that every 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 minutes until they look nice and crispy. Now, because we're going to be also cooking the chicken in there, basically I'm going to get these until they're almost done, and then I'm going to just throw them in my toaster oven to keep warm while we cook the chicken. Next thing we want to go ahead and do is actually go ahead and let the chicken start soaking in a buttermilk mixture. So I found that it does really help with the coating of the chicken to get it nice and sticky and have a really good texture to it, to let them soak for about half an hour in your fridge before you actually bread it with the flour mixture and breadcrumb mixture. So I'm going to take a little under a pound of chicken tenderloins, add in about half a cup of buttermilk, along with our salt and pepper, garlic powder, paprika, seasoning salt, and onion powder. You don't have to worry about over seasoning it too much at this point because we're going to also add the same seasonings into our flour mixture. But you basically kind of want to just move this around, get it all stirred together, and then set that in the fridge for about half an hour. Once you've got your chicken in the fridge, we can now go ahead and start prepping up our ranch sauce so that that can kind of sit in the fridge as well before we actually serve it. So this makes about probably 10 to 12 servings depending on how much ranch you really use in one serving. But I'm going to go ahead and make the full batch. I just really like it, so we won't use all of this for this recipe, but I love keeping this in my fridge to have all the time. I personally think it's even better than bottled, like Hidden Valley Ranch. So we'll start out with half a cup of mayonnaise, a third of a cup of buttermilk. You could also use regular milk if you don't have it. I've done it both ways and it doesn't really change the flavor, but since I already have the buttermilk from the chicken, I'm just going to use the buttermilk. You also want 2 tablespoons of sour cream, 2 tablespoons of chopped chives. I'm going to do about half a tablespoon of dried dill. If you had fresh, you would want to do about a full tablespoon, but the dried is much more potent. We're also going to do about half a teaspoon each of black pepper and garlic powder, 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder, another half teaspoon of salt, and then you basically want about 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. Once you have all that, you just want to kind of mix everything together. This is a really good ranch, and I personally really like it because you can kind of use the ingredients that you personally like. So if you are dairy-free, you could use dairy-free sour cream, dairy-free milk and things like that. So it really kind of creates an easy way for you to alter the ingredients and make your own homemade ranch. Once your chicken has been soaking for about half an hour and your fries are starting to finish, we're then going to go ahead and bread our chicken. So for that, we're going to need about half a cup of flour, a teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of cornstarch, 2 tablespoons of breadcrumbs, 1 teaspoon of paprika, 1½ teaspoons of salt, ½ teaspoon of garlic powder, ½ teaspoon of pepper, another ½ teaspoon of the Lowry seasoning, another ½ teaspoon of the garlic powder. Lastly, we're also going to add in about a tablespoon of that buttermilk or regular milk, depending on what you have. So you just want to mix all of these ingredients together until everything's combined. And then you just want to bread each individual chicken tender until it's fully coated. So we're going to take out the chicken from our buttermilk mixture, make sure everything drips off any excess, and then add that directly in. I like to kind of roll it around into the mixture, really pat it in, make sure it gets a nice thick coating of that breading so that it stays on really well in the air fryer. Once everything's nice and coated, basically going to cook them the exact same way that we cook the fries in the air fryer. So I like to cook them at 375 degrees. I start by spraying the basket with a little bit of nonstick spray to prevent it from sticking, as well as to help the outside of the tenders get nice and browned. You want to add all of the chicken tenders in an even layer, not stacking any, so do multiple rounds of this if you have more chicken that will fit in your air fryer in one layer. And then I also want to spray the tops of the chicken tenders again to help with the browning. And we're going to cook them at 375 degrees again for about 10 to 15 minutes. It's going to differ again how much chicken you have in there. So I'll cook them for about 7 to 8 minutes on one side, flip them over, and then just keep an eye on them. And then when it looks like I think that they are done, I'll go ahead and test them and make sure that they've cooked all the way through. Lastly, we're going to go ahead and assemble our wraps. So we're just going to lay down our flour tortilla, then add on our lettuce, cooked chicken, and then our cheese, and then drizzle a good amount of that ranch sauce on top and roll it up. We'll pair that with our fries on the side, and again, I'm going to dip my fries in that ranch. And that is going to conclude the recipe. Alright, and here's our final product with our wrap and fries. The fries turned out super crispy, really excited for those. And the chicken smells amazing. Looks really good with that homemade ranch. I'm really excited to eat this and really highly recommend this recipe, even if you just like chicken wraps in general. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, I'll leave everything in the description box down below, but feel free to ask me any questions on anything on the recipe. If you're new to my channel, make sure you follow me on Instagram for channel updates and content throughout the week, as well as subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the videos that I post on Wednesdays and Sundays. Thanks again for watching Morgs Menu, and I hope you have a great day. Bye, guys.